Good morning. I'm here with Jordan Litsky of Elevait, and we want to congratulate them for being a top veteran employer here at the U.S. Veterans Magazine. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing in the veteran space. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Mona.
Sure, absolutely. So, Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself. We understand you're a veteran. Thank you for your service, and we'd love to know a little bit more about, how long you've been in the service, which branch, and what inspired you to start the company, and walk us through your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I joined the Army in 2017. I was enlisted at first, went to school, ended up doing about 10 years. I got out as
Oh,
an
wow.
infantry officer. Yeah, I got out 9 years ago. So it's been a while for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, loved what I did. Realized that probably a career was not necessarily what I was looking for in the military, but it provided me a lot of great feedback, a lot of great learning lessons that I could take with me into my next career, really. So, when I got out in 2017, I was a statistic, just like most people in the military. They get out, they take the first job that comes their way. I ended up doing really well. I mean, I uprooted my whole family when I moved to Dallas when I got out. Did really well in the sales, world there, but I learned that I was probably 5 months in that it just wasn't the right culture fit for me. I didn't know how to vet companies properly. I didn't know how to vet jobs. I knew what I was making. I knew what my benefits, paid me in the military. And so I just wanted to get as close to that as possible. And that's probably one of the worst things that you can do looking back. At lessons learned, like one of the worst things that you can do is just take the first thing that comes your way. But, I didn't really have a mentor at the time who was there to help me kind of understand my options or understand how to properly interview. A lot of the military internships weren't nearly as big back in the day as they are now. So,
Mhm.
corporations have come a long way, but there's still a long way that they have to go.
Right.
So I ended up relocating again from Dallas to Charlotte, which is where I live now. A year after I got out, I was desperate for a job. And my buddy who worked in the recruiting world said, hey, like he offered me an opportunity. And while I had a really bad perception of the recruiting industry and of what recruiters do, I was desperate. So
Mm.
um, got in really quickly, like loved what I did. I realized that there's good people in every industry, and that I could be that change. And I realized just how much people depend on recruiters for their families.
Right.
That it's an industry that gets overlooked really quickly, but people are looking towards the recruiting industry to help them, get a job, to put food on their tables, to have a car that works to get their kid to school. I mean, there's so much that people just don't get. And
Exactly.
so, I really quickly did well. I worked for the largest companies. Two and a half years in to the recruiting world, I kind of plateaued. I couldn't really go any higher up. I mean, I broke just about every sales, record. And, while the money was great, like I wanted to do more. I wanted to help more people. And quite honestly, I felt like when you work for some of the larger companies, it's not about the people as much as it's about, making money making profits. And so that's really what led me to kind of venturing out on my own and starting Elevate.
Excellent. So you kind of already knew what it was like to be an employee, and then you ventured out to be an actual entrepreneur, because they're completely different. And I think that you knew what was good for you and what would work for you, and you flourished, and that's wonderful. You started giving some experience that I really wanted to touch more on. So with your experience, both as a veteran and in the recruiting, can you give our readers some advice, um, you know, to employers, and how to hire veterans the right way, or another way, because of your experience? I know you can share a lot.
Yeah, there is. It's hard to say what the right way is. I mean, we're in the human
Right.
capital business,
Sure.
and so people are all very different. People's needs are different. What I can say is that coming from the military, and now we're working with corporations coming from the military and being that recruiter, being kind of that glue. Um, I've had, or I've been afforded the ability to understand all sides. And so like that's where I would say like I am more unique in how like I hire internally and have built my company. Like we're just a little bit more unique because we understand all the different sides and we can piece it together pretty quickly. But I mean, when corporations look to hire veterans, and not just veterans, anybody, people are very reactive. Corporations need to hire yesterday, not tomorrow. And so that's just how people operate. Most of the time we're not thinking forward. We're not, looking proactively in how we can hire and develop. We're looking to say, oh, somebody quit and we need to fill a gap. And so,
Right.
people in corporations who hire, like that's not their full-time job. Their full-time job is executing on whatever that position is. They just have to hire to get that done. And so they don't necessarily they want to hire veterans. Everybody loves veterans for the most part. Veterans do great work. They're super loyal, but it's like they don't have that skill set that can come in day one. It takes
Right.
X amount of time to train them. And so that's where it doesn't matter if corporations have veteran hiring goals or initiatives. A lot of times they say, hey, you have one job, you have to have at least one veteran, one woman, one person of color that you interview before you make a decision. So it's more of a checkbox than saying, hey, like, let's look at what different areas in our department we can train within 60 days. I would say at least half the jobs in corporate America, you can learn in 2 months.
Sure.
It's about learning a process. It's about learning a specific technology. And so that's where I think corporations may not always be getting it right, because they just have a blanket statement. You're going to do this, this, and this before you make a decision, rather than, hey, where can we really carve out space to where we can build a roadmap, and we can teach and train and empower veterans coming out to not only just have a job, but to where going back to where it's got to be a culture fit. When I quit my first job after 5 months, it's because I didn't like what I did. I didn't like the people I was with. I didn't like the culture in general. And the military is very different. So, like people coming out of the military, they want to feel empowered. They want to feel like they have a voice. They want to feel like it's a team environment. And so that's more often, 9 out of 10 times, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact statistic, but that's where people get it wrong, or companies get it wrong, is that, you can't just rinse and repeat. Um, I'd say from the veteran side, like where they get it wrong is, again, like think, they think that they're in such high demand and that their skill sets transition perfectly. And while, like, again, everybody wants to hire veterans, we're super loyal, we work hard, we're quick thinkers. We have to be more understanding that the way that we did it in the military is not the way that corporate America does it.
Right. Would you be able to maybe like sum it up in like 3 things that a company could do a little better? Like what would be 3 things off the bat that they should do?
I think the biggest thing from once they get somebody in from a retention perspective is building more of a support system.
I
A lot
agree.
of companies,
Absolutely.
yeah, like a lot of companies, they have ERGs, or whatever you may call them, where they have breakfasts and coffees and everyone gets together and tell stories. But I mean, really, when somebody transitions into a whole new career where they were doing one thing for, could be 3 years, could be 30 years,
Right.
into like the culture, the process is so different. They need a lifeline.
Mhm.
For the first, 6 to 12 months, to where it's not their boss, it's not somebody who directly impacts their job. It's just
No,
somebody in
I
the
you're
organization.
absolutely right.
Yeah, it's
I
just
think
someone
that's
that they can
great.
call and say, hey, I'm stuck here. Where do I go
Right.
for this?
Right.
Or,
Right.
hey, I'm
Right.
feeling really stressed because I have 10 people telling me what to do and I don't know what to do first. Because in the
That's great
military,
advice. Yes. I
it's
love it.
process driven. It's black and white. This is this, then this, and this, and this.
Mhm.
And in corporate world, it's not.
Right.
That's probably the first thing. The second piece of advice that I could give people is don't just wait till you're getting out to start planning. Like you should start planning 12 months ahead of time at least.
Yeah.
Too often people wait until they get into what's called TAPS, the Transition Assistance Program,
Mhm.
and they start to do their resume and they look for a job, and they just expect a lot of things. And really, like, because in the military, once you hit this amount of years, you get a promotion, then this and this, like it's very laid out for you. Where in corporate America, it's not. You have to take, reign of like your career, and you have to, like, you're the only one looking out for yourself here. So really, like, you have to start planning yourself, and you have to start like being more inquisitive, 12 plus months out, understanding that no one else is looking out for you besides yourself. So again, lots of great programs out there that you can start looking into, but you can't just wait till you're getting out, or else you're going to be so
Absolutely.
far
I
behind the
love
eight
it.
ball.
Hmm.
I mean, those are the two like biggest things that impact everybody, but then as well, like, I'd say the third thing from a logistics standpoint is, like, what do you want to do when you get out? Where do you want to live? Are you going to go back home where you came from? Are you married with kids now? Do
Ask
you want
the
to stay where
important
you're at?
questions for stability. No, you're right. It's
I mean,
almost like
those are
plan
the three
ahead.
biggest things.
You're right. Start ahead. I love that advice. I think that's very valuable. You mentioned something else that I really want to touch on. A lot of people know what ERG groups, employee resource groups, but you are unique in a sense that you kind of summed up what it is. It's a support system. And ERG is a group of individuals within a company, but they're more than that. You call them support systems, and I think that is so great because it's relatable. And I know that you truly value them, but how can organizations build a culture where people genuinely support one another, like in your support system?
That's the $1 million question right there. Uh,
I know I'm hitting you with all the hard questions, Jordan.
Look, when you hire, it starts with the people first. Not company first, but people first. You have to have leaders from the top down who are bought in, and you have to have people from the bottom up that are bought in to really make that change. Too often, especially when you get into Fortune 500 corporations or enterprise companies, they're so big, it's hard to make the change that they really need unless they're going to put their foot down and truly say, this is how we're going to do it. And so if you don't have the people that are willing to put in the effort to make the change, it's just checking a box essentially. So when in a lot of what I do, like, I don't just hire full-time employees for companies. I hire a lot of like contract workers or temp workers or contingent workers is what they call them these days. Like, we don't always work with the entire company. Sometimes we work with certain departments of companies. And that's where it's like, hey, you got to understand, who are you going to work for instead of what company are you going to work for. So when you get into these large companies, again, when you get into interviews, you've got to ask the right questions to understand the culture of not just the company, but of the department, the values of the person that you're going to go work for, or the hierarchy of the people that you're going to work for. To truly understand, like, are they going to support me and my family during this transition? So ERG's fantastic if they're built the right way. There's a lot of companies that do things very well, but a lot of times it's just to say, hey, we're going to give this 10 grand to the veteran community to have coffees and stuff. Again, if the people aren't there empowering you to truly like embrace one another,
Sure,
you're not really going to get as far as you want to.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, you've given us a lot of great, uh, I want to say, challenges that the veterans already face, because you had mentioned, you need to really think about this way more than just a few months, almost like a year in advance. You also mentioned that veterans sometimes may not think about, where do I want to be? Am I going to get married? Am I married? Where am I going to live? Am I going to move my whole family? I mean, those are all great suggestions. Do you have any other, in your opinion, like, what are some of the biggest challenges? Because those are challenges that veterans face when they're transitioning into the civilian workforce, that you can share with us. What do you think are the biggest ones? Because you already mentioned some very big ones, that they're not thinking ahead of time or planning ahead of time. Are there some other challenges you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, look, Mona, like, if you're a pilot in the military, you train for 2, 4, 6, however long you train
Right.
for to be a pilot. Great chance you're going to get out and go fly for Delta or United or whoever.
Sure,
If you're a
that's easy.
doctor in the military,
Yeah.
you're going to get out and probably
Sure.
go be a doctor in the civilian world. But like, I was an infantry officer. Like, unless I'm going to be a contractor in the Middle East or somewhere doing something, I don't necessarily have jobs just lining up to hire me. So where a lot of people in the military struggle when they get out is they don't understand that their skill set does not properly
Align with the perfect, yeah,
align
with the job. Yeah.
And so where they make up for that is they go to some of these online colleges or community colleges just to get a degree. Where in reality, like degrees are not all the same. And so they think, oh, I'm just going to get a degree in business and that'll allow me to do that. You know, like
Right.
you have to find a mentor, number one, you know, to
Yeah.
set the right expectations. You have to look at and say, hey, this website shows my benefits calculator and this is how much my all-in benefits are and what I should be making. Well, should and reality are not very
Right.
different. Like people have an ROI tied to them. And so if a company sees the ROI to hire you, they're going to. If they think it's going to take a lot longer, they're going to pass on you and go to somebody
Right.
else who's better qualified. So I think the biggest challenge that veterans have is they think that they are worth more money than they actually are. And sometimes they are. Pilots, you know, people in specific skill sets where
Sure.
they've been trained,
Sure.
like they're going to make more money. But other people, you may have to take a small step back to take two steps forward.
I
And
think
when
that's
you
great
don't do that,
advice. Yes.
yeah, when you don't do
That's
that
very
is where
valuable.
you become highly
Mhm.
unemployed, when you get into substance abuse, when the suicide rates go up, like that is what attributes a lot of that. It's just like they're not well prepared and we don't do as good of a job like aligning expectations to reality. So like that's a big focus for me that I love to help people with, to where we truly can help them hit the ground running as soon as possible.
My final question, you might have even touched on it a bit because you mentioned kind of like the frustrations and the stress that they go through. You've spoken about how the mindset and the expectations can impact a veteran's transition, sometimes leading to that frustration, but also how shifting that mindset can create a positive outcome. Can you share more about that and how veterans can make the shift successfully?
Yeah, I mean, look, you have to take control of your life day one. You know, so what I wish that I knew when I was getting out is like, hey, you want to start planning to get out when you get in. You know, people a lot of times join the military because they're running from a lot of problems in life. They maybe come from a broken home, they don't want to go to college. Like, there's a reason besides the 10 or 15% that just says my parents served, I want to serve.
Sure.
Um, and so they're running from problems when in reality, like the military should be a step in your career. Sometimes it will
Hmm.
be your career, but oftentimes it's going to be a step in your career. And so you really have to start planning, and the military needs to do a better job, you know, like preparing you for your life. You know, I'll say, love the military, love my time there, but they want to keep you around. You know, so like they want to keep you around until like the mission changes. You know, so oftentimes like you have to be willing to take that step on your own.
Right.
And so that may be college, that may be a trade school, you know, that may be just doing like some research where you want to live and what you want to do and the type of jobs
Hmm.
out there ahead of times. There's you know so much that no one knows about because they don't do the right research. Like AI is a great tool. They're building tons
Sure.
of opportunities within AI to where like you can learn faster. You know, so like people just have to want to be educated in their career and taking the next step. And I mean that's the biggest driver. But I really wish that the military would take a little bit more time to educate people for the next step, not just that 9 month transition period saying, here's how you build a resume, you know, this is that, this is whatever. Good luck.
Yeah. No, you're right. I love this conversation. I want to thank you again for all the valuable information, all that you've done and all that you're doing to our veteran community. And you've truly earned it. And I wish you the best in the future and all the support that you give our veterans. And I can't wait till I put this out for our readers to know more about it. Thank you.
Awesome, Mona. I appreciate the time. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you.